Hey everybody, it's Richard, a little bit of everything. In today's video, we're finally going to get that exhaust installed. So stick with me, we'll get right to it. So let me recap a little bit of what I did, because it was hard to see when I was under here working. So as you can see right there, that's where the tailpipe was connected. That's where the new one will go. These hangers here are what the muffler was hanging on, and the pins went through these holes like that, so that the whole muffler would hang from those. And there's a series of them. You can see that one there, and clear back there in the back you can see another one there. And there were 4 of them that I had to push this whole unit that way to get out. But because of the axle, that muffler, which was about right here, went over the axle, and so there was that bend. Like I said, when this muffler was sitting here and they were up on a rack, they were able to drop this part of the muffler down so they could raise that back part up and over that over the axle. But because I didn't have any room underneath, I had to cut it, which you saw me do earlier. So now I'm going to go ahead and reverse all of this and start putting everything back together. So let's get outside here on the truck and get this pipe measured, and we'll start putting everything back in. So according to the instructions, it has the different wheelbases here, and I measured mine just to be sure. Mine's the 145, and you can either have a 6.5 foot or a 5.5 foot box. I have the 5.5 foot box, so this is the category my truck is in. And the length of that front pipe needs to be 29.75 inches. So I need to measure it, and I'm going to need to cut it to that length. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pipe measured and marked, and then we'll take it over to the saw and I'll cut it, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, I want to talk a real quick second about what I did here. So you guys saw me cut that. You saw me change out the blade here on my chop saw. Of course, this is a metal cutting blade, and you can buy these. I think this was $7 or $8. I got it at, I believe I got this at Lowe's. But anyway, so I measured my pipe, and then I cut it, and it left kind of a ragged edge, and so I took a file. I'm not as concerned about the inside, but I was concerned about the outside, because I want to be able for this goes into the muffler, so I didn't want anything obstructing the fit there. So I cut it to the size that they said I was supposed to. I pray to the good Lord that that's the size it needs to be, because I don't have another one, and this only fits once. So let's go get this on the truck. Okay, so the next step is to get this bracket put on so that I can then slide this into the pipe that I just put on there, and we'll get underneath the truck and I'll show you that part of it. Okay, so this next one is going to be a little interesting, because I have to slide it into the muffler, and then at the same time get it into this hanger. There we go. I don't know how far it's, I guess you see it all the way in. There. I put it into the muffler. I've got the clamp there. And then it came with this barb that goes into this muffler hanger right here. The other pipe's going to go on the other side. As you can see, there's a hanger here, but they give us a hanger that will adapt to the side here. Let me get the camera right, I'm sorry. To the side here, and we'll walk through that step here in a second. Okay, so the muffler kit comes with its own isolator and hanger, and there's a couple clips here, these little black clips. I'm going to attempt to show you how these install. All right, where we left off, as you can see, I've got it installed. My phone battery kind of went dead, so I had to go charge my phone, but in the meantime, I went ahead and finished the installation. So I thought I'd crawl under here and show you everything that I did so that you can see how it all went in, and then I'll have some comments about the installation versus what the video says. So let's get under the truck. Okay, so as you can see here, I went ahead and got the second pipe put in. Both of these pipes now are snug down and tight. As it follows along here, so right there you can see there's a bracket. And that bracket, there's a bracket on both pipes, and the brackets come together in that location. There's another one of those clips in there. Okay, so right up here you can see this screw. This is a clip that slides in between. There's a bracket on this pipe, and there's the same bracket on the other pipe, and those two come together. When you have to line it up when you put the pipes in there. You have to adjust the length of them so that these two brackets come together. And then there's this, one of those slide-in clips that goes in the bottom bracket, and then you run a screw down through the top bracket into the bottom bracket through the clip, and that holds these two pipes together in this location. As we go further down, you see I have the tips installed. That's what you use the Allen key for, which I'll never understand why they did that. So the thing that was really kind of remarkable about this kit, but it was a booger to get in, was this bracket right here. So this bracket had two clips that went into those holes, and that's where we left off when my camera died. And so when you watch the video on the install of this, they don't really show you the details of installing that bracket, but let me tell you something. That bracket is a booger to get in. You can get the clips put in there easy enough, but the problem is there is nowhere, once you've got those bolts to go in there, there is no room to swing any kind of wrench to tighten either one of those down. I actually, the top one, I was able to slip a socket on and move it one click at a time, and it took me forever to tighten that one down. This bottom one here, I used one of those ratchets, and I was able to get it done, but you can see all this stuff down here. It's in the way of swinging it, and then that plate over there, that deflector plate over there, that's also in the way. So it was a mess. But this bracket right here, and then this isolator here, all connect this bracket right here that's on the pipe itself. So that isolator then hangs basically the weight of both of these pipes on that bracket that you install right there. So once that's probably, I would say, other than the removal of the muffler from the truck, that was probably the hardest part of the install. And I can see how if you have the truck above your head, that might be easier. But even still, I mean, I wish they would have been more specific about, you know, the difficulty of installing that, because, boy, it was a booger. It was probably the toughest part of the entire installation. You know, anyway, let me just get out from under the truck and I'll show you the tips, and then we're going to start it. So a couple final thoughts about the installation of this muffler on the truck. You know, when you go to the website and you're researching all this stuff and you're watching the videos, just keep in mind that most of the time that when they're doing those jobs, they've got the truck up on a lift. I did look around at some installation videos of people doing it on the ground, but I can tell you that they rate the installation 3 out of 5. I'm sorry, 1 to 5. They call it 1 to 5 wrenches, and they gave this a 3. And I think that probably has a lot to do with the fact that that thing's sitting up on a lift and there's a lot more room and you can maneuver stuff around and you can see what you're doing. A lot of my issues had to do with the fact that I couldn't see much of anything, honestly. So I had to get a flashlight, and you know, trying to do it with by yourself, it's a little bit more difficult. So I mean, if I had to personally rate it, it'd be closer to a 4. Just based upon the fact that I didn't have any room. And again, if I could get the truck lifted up, that might be a different story. But all in all, I got it in there. It took me about 3 total hours. For those of you who do any kind of videoing for YouTube, you know that getting your camera shot set up and making sure your audio is working and all those types of things, it does add, it probably added an hour to the installation. I'm really happy with the way it sounds. It's real throaty. I really like that about it. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Reach out to me in any way you would like. And I'm going to transition now to the faith portion of my video. I really appreciate you stopping by. Give me a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. I am planning on a couple more mods on this truck, and they're coming up soon. So we'll see you then. I hope you have a blessed day. And don't forget, God loves you so very much, and so do I. Now to the faith portion of my video. Hey everybody, welcome to Faith Changes Everything. I'm Richard. I appreciate you stopping by. So in today's talk, I'm not going to talk about a particular scripture. I have something else that's been heavy on my mind that that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to start it off by asking a simple question. Have you ever asked, or has anyone ever asked you, why does God let bad things happen to good people? You know, why does he allow that? You know, if he's a loving God, why would he let that happen? I can't believe that God did this. If he existed, this would not happen. You know, something along those lines. Before I go any further, though, excuse me, I want you to remember a simple statement. And this statement is basically, there's no victory without the cross. So let's get into it here. Why do bad things happen to good people? You know, I do get this question from time to time when people discover that I'm a Christian. And very early in my Christian life, I did struggle to find justification from time to time as why God allowed things like this to happen, bad things to happen. You know, I believe that really, as I spent more time in the Bible and I, you know, continued my walk with Christ, I think it took the realization of fully understanding Christ's sacrifice on the cross for my eyes to really be open to the meaning and the full meaning behind suffering and you know, how it is meant to impact our lives. But let's talk about that for a second, because even as I sit here today, this question has been circling in my own mind because of things happening right now in my family, just to be honest. And even though I believe I know to a certain degree why some of these things happen, it's still hard for me as well to balance those, because on the human side of me is forced to deal with the consequences of sin in the world, and that is tough. Quite simply put, bad things do happen to good people. I mean, good parents raise kids that become rebellious. A wife and a husband, a good wife and a good husband, end up finding out one or the other is having an affair. Good people lose their jobs and they're faced with foreclosure on their homes. Good people get cancer.
Good people die at the hands of others. We could go on and on with this, but I think you get the idea. I do want to be clear about something here, though. Good is a subjective term. Let's be clear that none of us, not a single one of us, are without sin, and we all fall short of the glory of God. If this was not the case, there wouldn't be a need for salvation. So to look at someone and categorize them as good or better than others or better than yourself or not as good as yourself is to put yourself in the seat of judgment. And that, my friends, is only reserved for our sovereign God. So we have to be careful when we designate somebody as good. But I understand the meaning behind the question, because there are those in this world that seemingly do no wrong, that walk in faith, believe in God, work in His Word, and still they find themselves dealing with unbelievable and horrible circumstances. Brings me to a verse that is near and dear to me. It's in Hebrews. It's chapter 10, verses 36. The verse is, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what is promised. And I think that verse pretty much sums it up for me. Bad things happen to teach us perseverance and faith. Basically, so that we know what it is to truly obey God. We could talk about the other reasons. Bad things happen to good people. Reasons that include sin, poor choices, falling victim to others, poor choices, so on and so forth. All of those reasons are real and valid. However, instead of focusing on that aspect of the bad things that happen to good people, I'd like to talk about the one question I think that's on everybody's mind. The Bible is filled with instances in which God causes things to happen to good people, but God does not miraculously intervene to make those things happen. I believe He uses situations in our lives when we venture outside of the faith or our faith to find circumstances that will lead us back to Him. Let's talk for a minute about Abraham. If you know the story of Abraham, Abraham was made to suffer the agony of thinking about sacrificing his own son Isaac on the altar. God tested Abraham's faith and his obedience, but this is really another in a long line of parallels that the Bible uses, and it's full of these parallels, as everything points to Jesus and His greater sacrifice on the cross. This parallel mirrors what God asked of Abraham, and you will see the many things that evolved from this. There's a backstory with Abraham as well, and you will see the outcome of what that was and why God asked it. If you get into the Bible and you read this story about Abraham, I encourage you to spend time reading on it. On its face, I admit it seems an outrageous request to be asked to sacrifice your own son. But the lesson of faith, obedience, and the reward are all in the details of this amazing story. And this, again, parallelizes the story of Jesus' sacrifice. And they're blended, that story is blended throughout this one in the verses of Genesis 22. Again, we see a cross that somebody has to bear, and then the victory from that cross. God caused Mary and Martha, who are the sisters of Lazarus, He caused them grief by taking the life of their brother Lazarus. But that was done so Jesus' power could be displayed. Read John 11:4 and 41 through 44. This is a really, really interesting story about faith, and it also harkens back to the traditions that took place back then, back in Jesus' day, and why Jesus actually waited 4 days before He went to raise Lazarus. A lot of the angst and anxiety and suffering that these women went through were due to the fact that they felt Jesus should have come sooner, that He could have saved Lazarus. But back in those days, there was a requirement to wait 3 days for a person to be declared legally dead, kind of like a death certificate kind of thing. And if Jesus had come prior to that 3-day declaration, what He did probably could have been easily explained away. Oh, Lazarus wasn't really dead, that kind of thing. But because He honored the law and He allowed Lazarus to be declared dead, the fact Lazarus was actually dead was beyond dispute. So the pain and the sacrifice of this man's death revealed to everyone the power and glory of God and how good overcomes evil through the resurrection. Again, another parallel to Jesus and his resurrection. You know, these are just a couple of examples. I mean, if you want to read about true pain and suffering and how all of it was overcome, go read the story of Job and how God allowed Satan basically to destroy everything in his life. I do admit that Job has some controversy in it. I know when I first got into reading Job, I really couldn't understand the meaning behind why God allowed those things to happen to Job. But that harkens me back to a verse in the Bible, Proverbs 3-5, that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So one of the things that I've learned is when I read these things and I don't totally understand them, at least at the time or even still today, I understand the greater purpose that if I believe that God is in control, I have to also believe that there's a purpose behind what he does. Even though I may not see it, and even though the person it happens to may not see it, there is a cause and effect. There is a cross and a victory for every one of those situations. So when I read these things, I believe the message in the verse, and I lean not on what I understand, but trust his purpose in all things. As I indicated, each of these incidents, there was a direct action on God's part for a distinct and definitive purpose. You know, I really want to close this message by addressing the statement I made at the very beginning that there is no victory without the cross. Throughout the Bible, there are many instances where bad things happen to people and from it something good is gained. I would submit that when you look at your own life, the bad things in your life that happen, they are that proverbial cross that you have to bear. You know, sometimes God is trying to get your attention. He wants to help you. He wants a closer relationship with you, and he needs you to figure that out, that it's him that you need to lean on and not your own understanding. From the darkness of those cross-bearing moments in your life, calling out to him, come the moments of victory when we fall away from those things that take us further from him and believe again in his love for us. For everything that God causes or allows, God can work to our good if we let him. You know, I love this verse in Romans 8:28 and 29. It's one of my favorite verses of all times, and it's one that you'll see above store windows or, you know, I've talked about Bible verses in the past and how sometimes they are used out of context. But this one, the verse in and of itself is perfectly in context with just the verse itself. And it says, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. I love that verse. It's always going to be a special verse to me. Anyway, it really speaks to God being in control of your life and of helping you get through the good things and get through the bad times and understanding that he's got you. He's got you in this. So instead of stressing over the fact that bad things happen to good people, let's take comfort and gain wisdom by thinking on this. Bad things that happen to good people is God's way of saying he wants that person to move closer to him. Once again, we're talking about the cross and the victory. And the question is, will you, will I, will we make that move? I pray that we will. Hey, listen, everybody, thank you for joining me here on Faith Changes Everything. I really appreciate your time, and I would love to interact with you in any way that you would like to interact in this video. So please reach out to me, like and subscribe, and we will have some more verses and content. If there's something specifically you'd like me to talk about, I'd be happy to do that as well. God loves you so very much, and so do I, and we will see you in the next video. Take care now. Have a blessed day.